So what we are gonna do right now is a basic data exploration with the Tidyverse and ggplot. And so once we have downloaded R and RStudio, we should open RStudio, which is this. And this is what we are going to encounter. In the left part, we can see the console. And in the right part, we can see the environment, which is the where we have our variables. And down here, we can see our files and where we are going to see our plots. And if we need any help with any package, we can search through here. So first thing we want to do is see if we have R installed, or the version, or what version of R we are using, and for that we can just put console in the console version, and we have here what we are using right now, which is good because we don't want to use a really old version of R. The last one I think is 4 or 4 point something. We are going to create a project, because what we do when we create a project is we set a root folder, and that is good because we can start working from there, and not from our another folder randomly. So I have a folder already created with my data, which I've already downloaded. So I am going to use an existing directory, and here I have it here into Introdução, and I'm going to create a project right here, and this is gonna open a new session for me, where the root folder is already my folder, the one where I have my data and my other things that I could have of my project. And so I'm gonna work in new script, which I can open here in the left corner, and so here, working the script and working in the console, it's the same thing. Basically, I'm executing my commands from here, but everything I do here I can save later. So I can just save the file in my folder and call it I don't know, script. So what I'm gonna do first is to install my the package that I want to use. For that, I'm going to install packages, and the package is called Tidyverse. This is really fast for me because I already have it, but if you don't, then it will just take a little bit, but don't worry, not too much. And so I already done this. I don't need to do this anymore, and because of that, I'm going to comment is command and so it will not be run every time I source the file. When I source the file, I run the file completely, like every instruction that I have here. If I run if I want to run only one line, I will use run, or I will use command enter or control enter, depends on if you're on Windows or on Mac, which is the same thing that I did, which seemed magic right now when I just wrote here and it was executed here. We can see it now, that for me to load the library, I just need to use this function, which is called library, and with the autocomplete I can use I can set Tidyverse, and now with command enter I can just execute the order in the command line, which is the console. Tidyverse is really a bundle of packages, which is really useful if you are working with data, because mostly it has most things that you could use. We are going to use right now Reader for read data and ggplot for graphs. But you have here, for example, you have dplyr and tidyr, and to work with the data, for example, if you wanted to tidy a little bit, delete some NAs, or if you want to group by some variable or something, you can use dplyr. And if you want to, for example, work with strings, I don't know, if you want to work with strings, then you can, the stringer will be already loaded with a Tidyverse. It's the same thing that if you install a program and then you just execute it. It's the same thing. Basically, the concept is the same. So what I'm going to do right now is to load my data with CSV, and my data is here. This is my root. So I just have to navigate until my data, which is data Pokemon, and I can just autocomplete with a tab. And again, command enter, and I will just execute this command. So what happened here? I just read my data, I parse the data with this kind of type specification, and I have a data frame which is called a table here in Tidyverse. It has 166 lines and 13 variables or columns. But what happened? I didn't save it in any variable. I don't have here any assignment, so my environment is empty, so I cannot use it later. To do that, I'm just going to assign it to a variable called df, which is short for data frame. And this is the symbol for assigning. We can also use equal, but in R is more common to use this arrow. And again, I can execute and have my variable here. Because it's not really that big, I can just go to this little box here and see my data. If it were really big, my advice is just not do this, because it would load all the data and it's really heavy. So we have some functions that will help us to see how is our data. For this we have, for example, we have head, and I called, of course, my data inside the function. And what this does is showing us the first 5 rows of the data. If I wanted to see 15, I would just indicate it here. I can see a summary of the data. This is really useful because for each variable that is or column that is numeric, I can see the distribution, like the minimum and the first quartile and the median, the mean, etc. For character, I can only just see characters, and for Boolean or logical, I can see how many are of false or true. Another useful function is names, which will tell us the name of the variables, so of the columns that I have. So what we are going to do now is do some basic plots to see how the data is distributed. For example, first thing we want to do is to call the actual function that will help us. Will help us load the data in our graph, and for this we have to call ggplot and the data, and for the x and the y we want to call this little function inside the ggplot, which is called as for aesthetics. Here we can indicate the x and the y, and basically what this does is says just look inside the data frame. So I can just here say for my x-axis I want to see attack, and for my y-axis I want to see defense. So now I have to choose whatever geometry I want to add it. With the plus sign I can just go into the next line just to see that my line is not too big, so it will be executed as one command. And for the geometry I will just call geom, and now I want to see points. And here if I go run, it's the same thing. I will see attack on the x and defense on the y. Same thing I can do, for example, if I want to see an histogram, it's really easy. I just have to call again ggplot and the data, and for the histogram I just have one variable because basically what it does for the other variable is to count the number of observations that I have in that value. So I want to see the distribution, for example, of special attacks. I will call this x, and special attack, which is my column, and now I want to call the geometry histogram. This is really neat because now I can see that 20 Pokemons have a special attack of almost 50 points, which is really cool. I can see if my data is distributed normally, or if it's binary, or whatever it is. Here I can see the number of bins, which is the number of little columns that I have here. I have here 30, but I can just go higher, and because I have almost 200 in special attack, I can go just say okay 50, and now we'll see another distribution. Okay, and now for the last example, I'm going to see another plot which is really useful for me, at least, which is called box plot. Here is the same thing. I will call the data frame, and what I'm going to do with this box plot is I want to see the distribution of the values of for example the speed. So I'm gonna call the speed in my x-axis, and then I'm going to use box plot. So here, if normally the speed goes upward, so I'm going to just rotate the axis, and then I call the speed in the y-axis so I can see it better. So what it does here is I can see the median, which is this line here, and this tells me how the values of speed are distributed. So the median is basically the median value when they are short from lower to higher. So it tells me what the 50% of the data is, and it is near 80. And here it tells me where the 25% to the 50% of the data is, and here the 50% to the 75% of the data is. And here are some string values that basically what I'm doing is that saying that mostly all my values are here. So mostly all Pokemon have a speed between I don't know what is this is 60, so 50, and I don't know, 90. Okay, so what I want to see that by type. Remember that type where we can see type here in head my DF. Type is the type, if it's grass or fire of my Pokemon, so I want to see this by type. What I do here is I want to color it by type, and I just call color and type. Why do I call the aesthetics again? It's because I want to I'm telling him that the code to look into the data frame. Sorry, if you highlight something and execute, just execute it. So what I did is execute the eyes, but I wanted everything. So here I can see the speed, how it's distributed by each of the types of bugs. And that's it. I hope it's useful. Bye.